and welcome to The Full Scottish on Broadcasting Scotland. This week we're going to be talking about Brexit, surprise, surprise. We'll talk about Glasgow City Council settling the equal pay deal, Nicola Sturgeon going to North America, and we might even talk about question time. And joining me this week we have MSP James Dornan and Councillor or Bailey Annette Christie from Glasgow City Council. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, now I do hope you're going to behave yourself, James.
Right. You'll try.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about first is that favourite topic that, I'm being sarcastic, Brexit. So, this week, any different to last week?
Groundhog Day all over again. It's, I believe Parliament's Westminster sitting next week for a very important vote that's going to be as important as the last vote was. And we're going to be absolutely no further forward, I suspect, at the end of it. Although there's some talk about the Labour Party trying to find a way to help Theresa May push it through.
Yeah.
It's nice to see the socialists
they're all
after a working
coming
class.
together.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
Did you just say they're better together, Annette?
Yes, they are. Those two, definitely.
They would be better together. Somebody else.
Leave us to our own devices. Thank you.
I think, I mean, I don't know, I mean, are people talking to you about it? You obviously are in touch with people a lot, Annette.
Yep.
You're very active in your local community. Are people talking about it? They're getting fed up, or?
Well, those of political persuasion, yeah, they look to me and to the SNP for answers. And of course, we don't have the answers because they don't listen to us. Anyone else on a normal level, the people on the street, I'm out there answering the local questions. Usually it's potholes and dog fouling. That's the big issues of the moment for many people.
I understand you're very good at sorting out the potholes.
Yes, I am indeed.
You need to cut out the dog fouling.
I know, I must stop that. But yeah, they are worried because it's all scaremongering as well, because the vote for Brexit was based on a pack of lies. Now, nobody knows. They're in a mess down there. Nobody knows what they're doing, and we don't know what to expect. So it's all this, am I going to get my medicine that I need to have diabetes? Is that going to be available? Can I get oranges from Spain? All these sort of things. No one knows, so it's absolute confusion.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Westminster know no better than anyone else on the street.
And do you think, James, that, I mean, my feeling is that I obviously am a Remainer, a passionate Remainer, didn't realise how passionate I was about my European identity until the threat came. But do you think that most people would have said, well, okay, obviously Scotland didn't vote for it, but people that see things on a UK-wide basis, okay, fine, it's happening. If they had at least given us some clarity some time ago, I think that is a big problem for people.
I think it is, and I think that's why many people who voted Leave are now regretting their decision, because there's no clarity, and any clarity that has come out of it has been, it's been crystal clear that we were told lies to get this vote through. That bus is a wee bit like the train in Harry Potter, where it's just nobody else can see it, it just disappears, and the 350 million disappeared with it. It's been a complete farce from start to finish. There's been so much dishonesty from people who should know better, people in the public eye, politicians, what they like, who should know better, and there's almost like a small clique of mad right-wingers that are trying to drive Britain to extinction. I've never seen anything like it in politics in my life. It's the strangest. Well, in UK politics in my life, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
And I think you and I were talking about how it's quite embarrassing on the world stage that people are watching this and seeing what a shambles the UK is making of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Anne. I lived abroad for many years, a few different countries, and at that time, the British passport could take you anywhere, and I wasn't very political at that point myself, so I didn't mind that wee British passport, but it was the Union, the European Union, that meant the most. You could go anywhere, you could work anywhere. So, I mean, the freedom of movement thing is huge, it's absolutely massive, and it's going to be devastating for not only the people that are living here in Scotland and the rest of the UK, but those that have emigrated to the European countries. I mean, what is going to happen to them? Anne and I, we were chatting earlier, James, just about the creative... Yes, we were, indeed. Over a cup of tea, yeah, we did. talking about the creative industry, so you've got a lot of artists that, you know, travel freely across Europe and, you know, worldwide as well. You know, that's part of the artistic industry. It's all about creativity, cross-border working, collaboration, breaking down barriers, and all of that. But what is going to happen to that?
Yeah,
Funding has started to be pulled. Even in Glasgow, we're looking at conferences that come here on an annual basis. There's 3 of them haven't renewed for next year. And at this point, it's just uncertainty. Obviously, they don't know what's going to happen. But once we do, it's not looking good.
Well, I was on the board of the SEC, so when I was a councillor, and I realised just how important to Glasgow's economy these conferences are to the city. That's terrible news if that's happening, but it's hardly a surprise.
Yeah.
You know, there's been no thought whatsoever about the knock-on effects of
No,
Brexit.
exactly. And it's not just the fact of losing a conference. Obviously, that's a huge amount of business for the whole local economy. And, you know, it'll not just be Glasgow, it'll be happening in Edinburgh as well, and across the country. But then those business people that come here for those conferences, they also become the future tourists. They spread the word about how great our city, our country is. And so, you know, seriously, who knows what's going to happen, but it's frightening.
Yes.
And I suppose the most frightening thing, I mean, obviously we are going to say this because we all support independence, the most frightening thing is we get no say in it. Our Scottish government can do nothing about, you know, people who are being prevented. I mean, this whole freedom of movement thing, I remember reading something, I think it was in the Daily Mail, and they were really surprised that freedom of movement ending meant our freedom of movement would end. How shocking that, you know, that it wasn't just that we were preventing other people coming in.
But that's the whole point, isn't it? That's the whole point of Brexit, that the Brexit has always been about the superiority of the UK. We're not like those Europeans, we're better than those Europeans. And the rules should all apply to the Europeans and those further afield, but they shouldn't apply to us. You know, the people from Spain should have to jump through hoops to come here now, but our people should be able to go and stay in Spain. Don't be ridiculous. Why should it affect us? Because we're not immigrants, we're expats.
We're expats.
You know, and it's that whole attitude that's driven this whole thing from start to finish.
Interestingly though, that brings me on to something else related to Brexit, and that is Ireland, because Ireland, I think, are seeing how Europe supports a small independent nation. And I remember during the independence referendum, apart from them telling us that the unionists telling us that we would not be allowed to, if we voted for independence, we would have to leave Europe. Apart from that, they said even if we stayed within Europe, we'd be such a tiny, insignificant country. Ireland is smaller, and Ireland is seeing that they are playing a significant role in this. Have you been watching much of that?
I'm very impressed by the role that Ireland have taken in this. They've been very firm. They've made it clear that they're looking after their citizens, and B, that they're a part of the European Union. And this nonsensical idea that maybe the best thing would be for Ireland to rejoin the UK and then they could all do it together. I mean, it is just exactly. It is met with laughter every time anybody says it, except for a member of the DUP.
Getting the band back together, James.
Yes, getting the band back together.
What did you say?
Getting the band back together.
They were such a big hit the last time. But I think the other thing is clear is that, as you say, small independent countries are looked after. That's a union of equals, the exact opposite of what this union has proven itself to be. We got all of that before the last referendum. You know, this is a partnership of equals. Every country's the same. We all have the same equal say. Nothing. We've been disregarded, forgotten about. Not as much as the Irish, Northern Irish were forgotten about, right enough, and then treated with complete contempt every time somebody gets up to try and speak. Ian Blackford, who's doing a fantastic job as leader down there, every time he gets up to speak, he gets booed. You know, because we don't want to hear your voice. You're not important. You're only here. You were only meant to be here to make up the numbers for Labour, when in the good old days before the SNP started to get seats. Let's get out.
I mean, it's absolutely, as James is saying, it's not a union of equals. I mean, if we're all on the same level playing field, then it possibly could have worked. But what they're doing now with Brexit, for me, it's harping back to the British Empire. They want to be great again and have that status on the world stage. Well, it's not going to happen.
You see, the problem is that when Brexit was at its highest was probably when Rees-Mogg became an adult, and he's never moved on since then. You know, you look at him and you think, yeah, you would have fitted in perfectly there, sir. But times have moved on, and him and his ilk have not. They still believe in the innate superiority of the English, and as you quite rightly say, it's just leading us over that cliff.
And it's all right for people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who I understand have moved the headquarters of their private interests so that they are still part of Europe. But, you know, this week, a group of people who just can't do that because they're tied to the land were the farmers. And they put something out this week to say that if there's a no-deal Brexit, it just can't happen because it will ruin farmers. Did you see anything about that? Yeah. I know you don't have many farms. You do have one or two farms in your constituency.
I have no working farms in the constituency. I have one farm in the constituency, but I believe it's not a working farm.
Is it farm foods?
Just like you think that the country Iceland is in every corner.
I do, James. That's exactly what I think. Anyway, answer the question.
Oh, interrogation has begun. It was interesting to see the NFU coming out with the statements about the tariffs on red meat. If we get out in a no deal in World Trade Organisation terms, then it's going to be, what, 40% increase in tariffs for red meat. That is terrifying. And that's the start of some of the knock-on effects being seen, and that's when I think that people are going to really start to rear their heads, because Annette was talking earlier on about, you know, when you speak to political people, they're all talking about Brexit. Yeah. When you speak to the ordinary person, they're still worried about getting their messages and they want to get Wayne's dressed for school and all that sort of stuff. And when it impacts them, then I think that you'll find that the ordinary person is going to be up in arms about what they have done to us over Brexit.
And the worry, I suppose, if this does happen, if we have a no deal and the farmers are correct and they're going to have to then operate on 40% tariffs, is that could lead to us importing meat from the US.
Yeah.
And you were quite concerned about that.
Yeah, well, they don't have the same rules and laws and regulations when it comes to food. So I don't really have to tell you, but I mean, we could be getting meat in here that's filled with chemicals. Who knows what's in it? But it certainly wouldn't pass the UK food standards, and yeah, it's going to be flooding the market. So it's not just about price, it's about health. It's going to affect absolutely everything.
I'm also worried about what it's going to do to Scotland's food and drink industry as a whole, because I think at the moment, I'm right in saying I quite often get these figures slightly wrong, but I think I'm right in saying there's about £14 billion comes to the Scottish economy from the food and drink industry. The Scottish Government is trying to double that, I think, in the next 10 years. But you know, if our everything's now being labelled with, you know, British rather than Scottish, and that is the plan, is that all of our exports will be British rather than Scottish. Is that a good thing, James?
It's a terrible thing, clearly. I mean, Scottish industry, under Scottish Government, Fiona Hislop has done a great job in terms of selling Scottish produce abroad, the Scottish products abroad while she's there, the idea of Scottish products and the benefits of Scottish beef, and obviously our food and drink is world known. It's a terrible idea that, first of all, you disguise where it comes from, because the European Union, of course, makes sure that you can only have Edam from cheese from certain places, and that, you know, champagne has to come from the region and stuff like that. But now all of a sudden we're being told, because we're part of this union of equals, that doesn't matter. You don't need to say you're Scottish. You just need to say that you've got a Union Jack flag on it, and that is outrageous. But then it's not so much the exports that's a problem in terms of what Annette was talking about. It's the imports that are going to come in and be fed full of all these chemicals and gunk that they use to fatten up to make a profit at children's expense.
But you cannot say that Scottish whisky is British. Yeah, at the moment we are in a union, and obviously we're part of the UK, but to label Scots whisky with a Union Jack is just appalling. I mean, that's taken our whole identity away from us. Yeah, exactly. For me, it's an abusive relationship. You've got your partner here saying, we love you, Scotland, we need you, you know, but you just sit in that corner. No, you can't talk to them because, no, they don't love you as much as we do. That, for me, that's what it comes down to. It's complete abuse.
It's also a case of that they don't want you talking to them because then they might find that they're more attracted to you than they are to me, because Scotland in many ways is more attractive to outside bodies in other countries than the UK is as a whole, because the UK has given itself over the last 10-15 years pretty nasty reputation for dealing with it, and you're seeing that they're breaking promises and trade deals all the time just now. You know, they're reneging on everything they've said over the last few years.
Yeah. We'll maybe come back to Brexit. I'm sure we will come back to Brexit.
Can't get away from it.
I know. Well, it's a huge impact on all of us. But speaking of not very good relationships, good to see that Glasgow City Council now has a much stronger relationship with the women who spent the last 10, 11, 12 years fighting for equal pay. And I'll come to you first because obviously you're a Glasgow City Councillor. Yeah. So how's that been? What was the feeling like when it finally got...
In the council were elated. It was in the SNP manifesto in 2017 in the run-up to the council elections. That was the plan. We were going to end the equal pay dispute. And from day one, all credit to Susan Aitken and the city government. That was the plan, and that's what they enacted from day one. For me, proud, elated that it's happened, and relieved for the women who, as you've rightfully said, Anne's going on 12 years, that some of them have been fighting for this. But it's a fight for justice, and that's what it comes down to. It was all about inequality. There was no respect within the administration in Glasgow City Council at that time, no respect for these women. They just weren't treated equally to men in similar roles. That's it, that's the facts, that's the way it was. And it was, again, for me, it comes down to morality. You've got to know right from wrong. And I am pretty sure the councillors at that time knew it was wrong. But what they've said repeatedly was, the legal advice was that they could beat these women, they could win the case.
But why would you want
why
to?
would you? Yeah, exactly. It's all about gender equality here, and technically women's work not being classed and valued the same as the men were, but absolutely delighted for these women. And for some of them, it will be life-changing, the sums that they receive. Obviously, it varies case by case, but some of them, it's substantial amounts. So, very pleased for them.
Aye, as it should be. James, I mean, obviously, women are going to be jumping for joy, Annette and I are jumping for joy, but you were a Glasgow City Councillor before becoming an MSP. How did you feel when you saw that the SNP had finally managed to settle it after Labour's mess?
Two things I think that one is well done to Susan, well done to the councillors, well done to holding your nerve, because it was very difficult negotiations. There was a lot of political playing going on at the same time. There was utter hypocrisy from Labour councillors and ex-Labour councillors and Labour politicians, or wherever they are, about us not fulfilling the deal when they spent, as you quite rightly says, 12 years, because we're given advice, if you keep on doing this, a woman will cave in. Not that the right thing to do is this,
exactly.
But here's legal advice that says you can get away with it. So well done to everybody that held their nerve there. It's a great result for the council. It's a fantastic result for women, but it's also, in general terms, it's just a great key day for equality. You know, we should not be having such a thing as women's jobs. You know, there's jobs, and everybody should be getting paid equally to do the same job. It's been outrageous.
And also I think it was quite an emotional thing for a lot of the women, because it was finally saying to them, officially and formally, we do value what you do, we do value who you are, and everybody needs to feel connected, they need to feel valued in what they do. The thing that I had no doubt it would be settled, but I was quite worried about how you pay for it, because it obviously means, you know, there's this huge bill to be paid. So I was really excited when I heard how, you know, because I thought it was going to mean cuts, huge, massive cuts, but They pulled some rabbits out of the hat, so do you want to say something about how you're actually going to pay for it?
Well, not me personally.
Although you could.
Well, yes, maybe one day. Can I get equal pay? I'm not looking at you, James. Well, the City Treasurer, the Financial Director of the Council looked at many ways, how can this be done? And yeah, I mean, obviously that's the first thing people think, oh, they're going to be cuts, what services, what we're going to lose. It's a huge amount of money, over £500 million, so it's a substantial amount, and it's not the sort of money that we've got lying down the back of the couch, is it? Mm-hmm. So what they're looking at now is a land and property strategy, looking at council buildings that can be leased, mortgaged, getting the money. Council will still own them, but just funding them in that way. But it will, when you get a mortgage, most people have one, so we know what it's like. It will take decades and decades until that is paid back. But that's the sort of commitment that we've made, and as I say, we've looked at new ways to make it happen, so hopefully that'll all go through
So
fine.
you're effectively mortgaging places like the Royal Concert Hall, places like that.
The Emirates, Scotstoun Stadium, that sort of thing.
Which means, as you say, it'll take years and years to pay it back, but it's better than today's citizens of Glasgow, who certainly didn't support what Labour were doing to these women, having to pay for it all in this year.
Yeah,
So
and no one's going to lose anything. They're not going to lose any of the great venues or the events that we hold. All of that's going to continue. It's just going to take us a wee bit of time, obviously, to pay it back, but we'll do it. We'll get there.
And let's hope, because we can't actually say that, you know, nor would we want one party to always be in control of every council and every... Well, maybe you, James, but, you know, the Democrats amongst us. But we're not always going to be in control. And we're not always going to be perfect either. But the Labour Party surely will learn from this. I really hope they do. But you wanted to say something about the mortgaging of the venues.
Yeah, although I do want to pick up on your last point that the Labour Party will learn something from this. I've seen nothing. Yeah, exactly. I've seen nothing over the last 11 years that says that the Labour Party learned anything from anything. They, when they were defeated in 2007, the first thing they should have done is to review of their whole party structure, seen where they went wrong, and tried to win back their vote. They didn't do that. They just coasted along in arrogance, believing that it was the voters that were wrong and not them. So I'm not sure. Labour Party are not very good at learning lessons. The only thing I would say about the city, the venues, which I think is great, because you're right, we couldn't possibly pay for it just now, and I think that's the most sensible way for the money to be made available, is every time anybody complains about those payments, don't complain to this council, complain to the previous councillors, because they've put us in this position. Yeah. If they had done the right thing at the right time, we wouldn't even notice. Yeah. You know, life would have been on as normal, and we wouldn't have been facing, those women wouldn't have been facing the battle, and we wouldn't have to, the council wouldn't have had to do what they're having to do to pay for this lump sum.
Well, that's part of the hypocrisy of the whole thing. Absolutely. As soon as the SNP were elected to Glasgow City Council, those same councillors, Labour councillors who had fought to not pay these women, were out on the picket lines with them, telling the SNP, new administration, pay up, pay up. It's your fault. Well, no, it was not our fault. But we resolved, we did say in the beginning, we would get the job done, and that's what we're doing now. Yeah,
it's great. Now, and obviously, you know, Susan Aitken, as leader of the council, has been tremendous in all of this, which I like my links, so that neatly segues into something else I just wanted to talk about in terms of venues. The news this week that we might lose the ABC, which obviously was burned down during the Glasgow School of Art. Now, the link to Susan Aitken
I was wondering.
Where's that coming in?
She wasn't going to be highlighting.
She got a demolition company at.
But I did bump into Susan once at a Chaz and Dave gig at the ABC. So I've only been to the ABC twice, and I'm sure you won't have been, James, because you're far too old to be going to gigs, but have you?
I'm far too young to ever went to ABC before it was anything but yes, I have been on many occasions for many different things. Well, I can't remember. It was far too long.
Remember, can you? Was it Vera Lynn?
No, she was in next week. But I'll tell you that Al Jolson was everything
Al
Chris
Jolson
wanted
was
to be.
good, was he? No, so what is the story with the ABC then? What is going to... How do people stop it happening? Because obviously it's an iconic venue, and I think it's the owners that want...
Yeah, well, it would have to be the owners putting forward an application to the council for demolition. So I believe that is in the works. That is what the owners are intended to at this point. So then it would be presented to the council their case for why they would want this demolished, and presumably because it's not safe. But what would be their intentions beyond that? Once it gets to the council, like any sort of planning application or anything else, you've got to follow normal procedures, regulations. So at that point, the public can get involved, get their voices heard, whether it be a petition, going to your local councillor, just making your views heard, and also trying to find out what's going on and what are the future plans, because at this point, we don't really know. It's fine to say demolition, but are they going to retain any of the facade of the building, the character, and what would be the future purpose? So that's what we need to find out. But as soon as that news does become available, then yes, I would urge everyone in the local community who does have an interest, get your voices heard and just let us know.
Yeah, Sandra White brought it up.
Sandra White.
At FMQs on Thursday, and exactly with the point about surely a building as iconic as that, they have to at least try and make sure that they keep the facade, or as much of the facade as safely doable, because Glasgow's got a proud heritage, and we want to keep as much of it as we possibly can.
So I'm someone who really gets the emotional link to buildings because they do say something about your heritage. I grew up, as did Annette, in Greenock. She was in the posh bit. I was in the...
Listen, you didn't even need to say that. We had that.
Thanks, James. Anyway, this is not true. Anyway, but we had shipyards in Greenock and Port Glasgow, and when they all started to close, which was quite a long time ago, I remember there was talk of removing the last cranes in the last couple of years, and there was a fight against that. I'd have been horrified if that had happened. So do you get the link that people have between buildings and their history and why there's such an emotional connection?
Very much so. I think that sometimes it's the last link between you and memory. If there's something there that's been there all the way through your life, and when you get on, when you're over 40 like I am, you need to...
Sorry, can we just stop a wee minute? Can we just stop a wee minute? I'm all for politicians embellishing the truth, James, but really you can take it too far. Well over 40, 50, 60. Anyway, sorry, carry on, James.
It's very, whatever, I mean, you're now splitting hairs, which I can't afford to do either, but it's important that you've got that visible link for your memories. And I think that buildings, iconic buildings where you went to the dancing when you were young, or you went to a good school. We've got only school in our constituency that's been sitting there under rack and ruin for 15 years or so. And now, thankfully, there's work getting done in it, and they're keeping it, because it's listed. Some of it's listed. And it's a building that's well worth keeping. It's going to be used for housing, and it's great to know that that's still there. They've done it with other buildings locally. And because one of the old cinemas in where I was brought up in my constituency, they kept the facade and they built flats behind it. Fabulous. Fabulous, because you still see it as being the Toledo, but people are living in there and have been for a long, long time now. So I think it's really important to keep that link.
Yep, well, that's something that's being discussed at the moment. I know in the Shettleston ward, the Shettleston Halls burned down a few years ago, and it's a housing association that's taking it over. And great that we need housing, so they're building flats and they're looking at ways to try and keep that facade. It's still standing there at the moment. There's nothing behind it. It's all gutted completely. But you're right, James, because I mean, people, particularly say Shettleston Halls, for example, they've got memories of going there. That's where they met their husband or their wife. Their kids went to dancing classes there, all of that. So it's more than a building. It's a part of them, a part of their history, and links them to their grandparents or whoever.
Exactly. It keeps Glasgow alive. And that's really important. We're using Glasgow, but I mean any city, it keeps it alive by keeping those buildings, even if it's just the facade of those buildings. I think it's really important to try and do that.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, a responsibility of the council. I mean, a lot of them are in private ownership, so obviously the owner should get first dibs on what happens to their property. But the council does have a duty, and there have been so many over the decades in Glasgow buildings that have just been gone to rack and ruin, just literally left to rot.
Yes.
Okay, so the previous council didn't need them at that point, no use for them, but you can still maintain them. You can offer them up as a community space. There's things you can do, but never happened.
When did local authorities just decide to give up on their heritage?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what happened over many decades.
Yeah.
They just gave up their heritage.
Which is why I love the community empowerment legislation that's come from the Scottish government, or the Scottish Parliament, because if whoever is supposed to be keeping these buildings wants to let them go to rack and ruin, then let the community take over, empower them to take over. Anyway, speaking of facades, the State of the Union address this week, did you watch it?
No.
Did you watch clips of it on Twitter?
Yes.
Heard many things. Yes.
The man's mental.
Right, okay, well maybe find a different way of saying that. You're concerned about his health?
And no, I'm concerned about his country. I've never come across a senior politician like him. It's a real shame that we're mirroring in the UK the type of politics that we've got in the US. And for all, I mean, my joke about the president, it really concerns me that there seems to be no thought about the consequences of his actions. I said there will be a wall, so therefore there will be a wall, and you can go without wages for 2 months.
I know.
Just to prove my point. That is just, that's no way to run a country.
I mean, I think, you know, I mean, many people said he'll never become president, and he did. But even after that, if you could have predicted that some of the stuff that's happened over the last couple of years was, people would have said you were mad. And this idea that there would be a complete shutdown, and he wouldn't be able to make. But anyway, the shutdown ended. He was able to make a State of Union address, and I thought he sounded very reasonable at times.
Yeah.
He was calling for, you know, people to work together.
But did he write the speech, Anne?
Do you think he didn't, Annette?
Well,
Listen, I was surprised that he managed to read the speech, never mind write it. So but you're right. There was parts of it where he seemed
more
like
measured response.
a more measured and lucid politician, and then things happen, and then you know he would come back to that lucidity, but
And
he worries me.
You were saying earlier that you identified with somebody in the audience.
oh yes, a young boy named Trump. Not related apparently, but yet invited, and just fell asleep during the whole thing.
Has anyone ever fallen asleep while you've been speaking, James?
In the house.
All the time?
All the time, yeah. I can't imagine it, huh?
But
No.
Trump, really, I'm just waiting for the movie. I mean, can you imagine who's going to play that part? I mean,
James?
Well, I think that it's got to be Saturday Night Live guy.
Who's this?
One of the brothers, I can't remember who does it, but does Trump on that. He's fantastic at it.
Right.
Got him
All
down the
right.
final.
Oh yes, I know who you mean. Can't remember his name, but I do know who you mean. But I thought, you know, the most astonishing part of the speech for me, and I think he probably did write this bit, was where he was saying we all have to work together and we have to move forward, and that means not investigating your president. Yeah, you missed that bit, didn't you?
Miss that bit.
Mustn't investigate the president. The other bit
Well, I take back the thing I said at the beginning. He's clearly still quite sharp. Don't investigate me. Nothing to see here. Move on.
Nothing to see. But I have to say, actually, I was thinking about you, Annette, when I watched Nancy Pelosi, who was sitting behind him. She was doing her best to keep her face straight, but she couldn't help herself. And Annette's quite often like that. Her facial expressions will tell you exactly how she's feeling.
Donald.
It was funny. It was funny, but it's not funny at all, actually. But you know,
No, it's a
if you
very
don't-
scary. I mean, the man is an egomaniac, and he's there by preying on people's insecurities, their fears, absolute scaremongering, blaming everything on the foreigners, which is that not what we're doing here at
Yeah,
Brexit
exactly.
right now?
That's it.
So obviously it does work on some level with some people, but when they see the realities of Brexit particularly, what's going to happen with that, well, maybe not the ardent racists, but some that might have a slight tendency towards racism, I don't think they could agree with what's going on at the moment.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Trump wasn't the only one making speeches in the United States this week. I'm getting really good at these links, aren't I?
They're doing fantastic.
Who
man,
could I
honestly.
be talking about now?
Yeah.
Now, what's her name? Nicola somebody. Yes.
Oh,
The
yes.
First Minister of Scotland
Yes.
was in the US and North America. And it's always amazing to watch how the media in other countries treats Nicola Sturgeon so differently to the media here.
With respect that she
Yes,
deserves.
it
Yeah.
is. It's amazing. The First Minister is clearly respected for the work that she does in so many different fields. And then you read I'm just going to name a paper, but it could be almost any paper, or you could watch the television and it would be a tiny wee clip. I mean, some of the stuff that's been happening over there should really make us proud of our First Minister, and many of us will be, but most of us won't even know about it because it's not been publicised in the way that it should be. But if she'd made a slight faux pas, it
that
would have been front page of the papers.
Well, there were some people, I don't want to say the Tories, I do want to say the Tories, but it might have been Labour. Anyway, one of those Better Together types who were saying that she shouldn't have gone at all.
No,
and she should have stayed here, as if she was going on holiday.
yeah.
But no, that's back to the abusive relationship. Nicola, get in the room, under lock and key, you can't speak to people. That's what they're doing yet again. And North America, Canada, there's such strong links to Scotland over there.
Well, you lived in Toronto for a long time, didn't you?
And the first Prime Minister of Canada was a Scot.
Yeah, yeah. Historically, that there's always been links. But even in the last 50 years, there's so many Scots that have moved to Canada in particular.
I've got tons of family over there.
Yeah, and well, you can't go anywhere in Canada without, if you say you're Scottish, oh yeah, you know, my auntie, whoever, they know someone. So the links are already there. So how this can be seen as inappropriate or at the wrong time, I just don't understand. And of course, Nicola's going to just keep growing those links, and that gets back to Scotland and our identity and keeping the flag on our products. And that's basically what she's doing by going there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why they don't like it, of course, is you say you can't understand. I can understand perfectly. They don't like it because every time that Nicola goes over there and sells Scotland in the way she does, it weakens the case for the Union. And they are terrified of that. Scotland should really know its place. And we shouldn't be talking for ourselves, and we shouldn't be selling our products, and we shouldn't be showing all the good things that we're capable of. It's the only country in the world where you see media that downgrade the positives of their own country. I mean, every other country in the world, they're selling their country. Come and see the island, come and see Ireland, beautiful island, come and see Wales, even they do it. And we have got Visit Scotland, and a lot of people do good work. And then we get the media that are like, oh, aye, but have you seen the drugs here, and have you seen the unemployment there?
It's awful. It's awful. I think also something that's gone underreported is that Nicola was invited to be, now I can't remember all the words, it wasn't a snappy title, but she's basically the United Nations first ambassador for something gender equality for women. And that's a huge accolade.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
And it's because of a lot of the work that she's done on...
I mean, the First Minister's been brilliant on this. She's been great on... Since the very first minute that she became First Minister, she's made it very clear about her desire to make sure that women are seen to be equal and treated equally on every front. She did it right away with her cabinet, and she's been doing it ever since. And she's been encouraging all sorts of other bodies to do it, and that impact is there for everybody to see. Long way to go.
And she supported your resolution, the one that you took
the
to
last
conference.
SNP conference, I mean, and that's very much like equal pay. We were speaking about gender pay equality, the gender pay gap, and I mean, it's staggering to say that women still get paid less for men in similar roles. And that happens in public bodies. In private sector, obviously, it's a lot easier to do, you know, in private companies. A lot of the times, it comes back to no respect for the so-called women's work. Also, there's the maternity penalty. So, you know, when a woman goes off on maternity leave or other caring responsibilities, when she comes back into employment, they look at what she was paid before. Now, she might have been out for a year, 2 years, maybe more. Has she lost the skills? Has she not learned more when she's juggling a household income, looking after her family? But no, that they're still paid more. And going back to the conference, the motion was on trying to ban salary history questions during job interviews. Because that sounds like a very simple thing, you know. So you're in an interview, how much did you earn in the past? You don't need to ask that question. You look at the skills, you look at the individual in front of you. Are they good at the job? Do you think they're capable? Can they do more? What can they bring to my company? But asking them, you know, what they were paid previously puts them in a little bracket and they're stuck there and they just don't progress through life.
And
that's a very good point. Very good.
Asking the question, what it really means is how cheaply can we get you?
Well, I mean, we all love a bargain. I mean, you know, I love a sale when I go to a shop. I look for that wee red sale sign. But that's what that's what it comes down to. Yeah, they're looking for a bargain. But when it's a gender inequality, that's something you just cannot do. Not these days. It's not on.
So the other thing Nicola did was she gave an address to Georgetown University, and I've actually had to go and look for this information. She was on several media programmes, did loads of media interviews. She was selling the food and drink industry. She was setting up the social enterprise link. Apparently Scotland and Canada are the two leading social enterprise countries in the world, and now she's set up a link so that we can share information and experiences, and both countries grow from that.
Isn't it great that you only found that out when she went to Canada, that Scotland was one of the two social enterprise best countries in the world when she went to Canada, because you're researching, well, it's something that should be proclaimed everywhere, and that's what it's about. It's about keeping us keeping us down is too strong, but it's about not highlighting the strengths of Scotland.
But I think for me, it really angered me when I saw whoever it was. I think it was the Scottish Conservatives attacking her for going. But I think Labour brought out a video where they say, First Minister, while you were away, this is what was happening, and it was all the SNP bad stuff. And I think, you know, she was not on holiday. She was working dawn to dusk. She would be absolutely exhausted. And then she comes back and straight back into work.
Well, we've seen it.
I know. But I think we need a bit more supportiveness in politics in this country. Anyway, right, okay. So, did you watch Thursday night anything on television? Apart from EastEnders?
There was that.
Did you watch Question Time?
By the way, I've been forced into watching some of that. I saw some bits of it. I know what it's about.
I watched it from start to finish.
Oh, I see you're wearing an orange jacket as well. Is that so that you get a chance to talk today?
I'm not sure how to answer that. Move on. So basically, you were saying that you didn't watch it, but you'd read about it.
Yeah, I never watch it.
So basically, it was quite astonishing, because it's fine that you've got one guy who appears as just an ordinary guy in the street, and he just wants to tell Fiona Hislop, who I thought was magnificent, because she kept herself calm, she was smiling, she was pleasant. He was obviously trying to provoke her, but it turns out he's a regular. But it wasn't just that, it was that almost every audience member was attacking independence, attacking the SNP, almost like they were hand-picked.
No,
biased much?
That's BBC, they would never do such a thing.
Okay, just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence for the 52nd time in a row, I think. It's outrageous. Question Time, I think the production of it is with a private company, Mentor, and I don't know what criteria they're working to, but they're certainly not working to the criteria of let's have the audience fit in the demographic, the electoral demographic of the area, because the same man who's an ex-UKIP candidate, who is on social media saying pretty vile things about certain sections of society, is picked 4 times for Question Time. He's on that BBC pilot show. He's in the audience for that as well.
Really?
Yeah. somebody pointed out that they think his mother was on question time with him. You know, the whole thing just stinks. And this is not about how dare they question us.
No.
You know, I don't care if people... I think that politicians have to be questioned. They've got to be held to account. But I do think that when you've got the same person with such a, you know, shady background to some extent, then I don't think you should be on there all the time. And when you get asked to go on question time, I certainly remember before I became a politician, I think I might be near with you, Anne, we were asked quite clearly what party do you support, and, you know, are you a politician, blah, blah, blah.
Also, have you been on in the past?
Have you been on in the
3
past? I was
years or
thinking
whatever
that.
it
That's
was?
right. So these rules clearly don't apply to certain others, but when they apply to you and I, to be fair, that's probably understandable.
But basically, anybody watching that who doesn't live in Scotland could be forgiven for thinking, well, the SNP are on their way out. Murdo Fraser was trying to tweet and say, well, he wasn't trying to tweet, he did tweet, and he said that the SNP are now realising from watching Question Time that they are on the wane, and yet the opinion polls, you know, were going up, or holding up, we're going up and up and up. But so you would be forgiven if you lived in England or Wales or Northern Ireland for watching it and thinking, oh, well, that's the SNP finished. There's no point in any independence referendum.
But not just in England or Wales, in Scotland, anyone that isn't aware of what's happening, doesn't know about the bias that's in the media, if that's all they see, well, what else are you going to believe? Because if you're not on social media, say it's an elderly person that is really, you know, a bit like yourself, James, that you maybe not into social media, that sort of thing.
No, I never go on the thing.
Never on it.
Never on it.
Never off it.
But if they're not having all these different views presented to them, and that's all you see, well, oh, maybe that is the way it is. I mean, how?
Yeah.
Where you get your information?
That's right. What else would you know? That's exactly
actually
right.
a really important point in it, because
do
it influences how people think. So their view, their impression of the SNP and independence is, oh, my country doesn't want it. So for people on the fence, so that's why I think a lot of people think it is deliberate. I don't know if it is or not, but a lot of people think it is because it does have an impact.
Of course it does. I mean, but the impact is sort of, when we go to the door and we tell people that they're moving, you know, oh, listen, the polls are showing that they're moving towards us, we can speak to people here, they're moving towards us. No, that's all question time. It's clear that you've still got lots of work to do, you must have a lot of questions still to answer, all that sort of stuff, and it's not just question time, there's other aspects in media that you could question, although papers have always had their own agenda and they're entitled to have their own agenda. The BBC is meant to be, it's a taxpayers funded organisation, it should be scrupulously clean, and in question time, I won't talk about any other programme, but in question time it clearly has shown itself not to be.
And yet, I mean, I like Fiona Bruce as a presenter, but she has nothing to do with choosing the audience, of course. But what did you think of, did you see Fiona Hislop's response? Because I thought Fiona did something that I think we need to make more of. She was very calm. She smiled, and it was a genuine, you know, we know Fiona, it was a genuine smile. It wasn't a, I'm being forced to smile here. This guy in particular, but others, this guy was really having a go at her and really attacking her, quite a sustained attack. And she was absolutely delightful in her response to him. She was patient. What she did that I think we need to make more of is she demonstrated that the SNP is full of fantastic politicians with fantastic temperaments who are listening to other people and who do, you know, take what, you know, people say to them and listen to it. And I think sometimes we don't recognise those people, or the media doesn't, because the media always wants Nicola for obvious reasons. But they need to start looking at some of our other politicians. I also thought John Swinney did a great job at First Minister's Questions this week.
Fabulous. I think that John enjoys so much the rare opportunity to get up and play that role and get stuck in and, you know, answer questions forcefully the way he did and with humour, and I thought he was great. He's always a John's always good, but I mean, I thought he was particularly good on Thursday.
If you've not seen First Minister's Questions, do watch it.
Yes.
But just what you said there, and that's the thing about the SNP, it is a team. It's not one person or a small group of people. Whether it's politicians or the activists, the members, all contributing in different ways, but none of that message really does get out there in the media of all the wee things that they're doing on a daily basis.
To be fair, you've been a member of the party even longer than I have, and I've been a member for over 20 years. It's always been us. And despite the fact that it's always been us, we've been in government for 11 years. We came from 27% to 45%. We'll get a message out there. People know that what we're about now, and we'll get a message out there. It'd be much better and much easier if we didn't have to put up with what we had to put up with question time. But we've got the activists, and more important than that, we've got a cause that people can rally around, and that's clearly understandable and sensible, being able to run your own affairs. That's all we're asking to do. We're not asking for anything else. We're just asking to be able to run our own affairs. What is wrong with that? Who could really argue against that?
I know.
But they do.
But they do, yeah.
But it is an important point that you make about the activists in it. I mean, my happiest times, I've been elected twice, so elected to the Scottish Parliament, elected to the UK Parliament, and, obviously I wanted to do that, and I'm glad that I did it, but my happiest times were always, and are still always, out campaigning with activists. We used to have great fun in Rutherglen, didn't we, James?
No chance of winning, but we had great fun.
We even had fun the time that we ordered, I think it was 20,000 leaflets. James was my campaign manager, I was the parliamentary candidate, and we ordered 20,000 leaflets, and they were beautifully designed. And they were really well laid out, really clear and easy to follow, and there was only one thing missing. What was that was missing from that leaflet, James?
It was an unimportant feature called your name.
Yeah.
Anne McLaughlin. But to be fair, nobody votes for the candidate. We know
This
that.
is true.
It's a party, right?
This is true, and it does demonstrate that I am not an egomaniac. Because I was happy to put out leaflets that didn't even mention my name.
Yeah, and you promised you'd never mention it again, but here we go again.
She just can't let it go, James.
Anyway, we were talking about James's lack of time online, his use of social media. We were kidding, of course, because James is quite prolific on Twitter. And the Scottish Government are going to be consulting with people, including young people, about guidance for how much time you should spend, they're calling it screen time. And my immediate thought was, do you know what? There is an issue, but that issue rests with adults as well. And I'm going to freely admit, I have a problem because, this week I had a big report to do. And I was doing it, but I wasn't getting through it very fast. I wasn't able to concentrate. And I thought, it's because I keep going online. So I took everything offline, my laptop, my iPad, everything offline. And every 5 or 6 minutes, I would go on Facebook. And I couldn't because I wasn't online. But I would ask myself, why are you trying to get on Facebook? What is it? Because I had that gap, because I couldn't get on. I had the time to ask myself what I was doing, and I wasn't doing anything. I was checking to see if anybody had anything interesting to say.
Exactly.
And I'm somebody that I'm quite productive. I get through a lot. But if I'm feeling that actually I'm going to have to look at this. I mean, do you feel
We've all
that
become gossps.
James, sorry.
What's James doing now?
And we've all become that woman that peeks through the curtains.
Can I just say, become?
And man.
Yeah.
He very quickly says. But that's what it's like. We're so used to being able to see people's lives through it, and I spend too much time on social media. I don't spend as much time on Twitter now, and I'm trying to spend next to none on it because it tends to get me into trouble. But also I think it's wrong because it takes you away from doing the things that are important, just as you talk about. So I think it's a great thing if kids are being sort of taught the benefits of the benefits of social media and the benefits of being online are all there, but they shouldn't become obsessed by it.
You've got a 15-year-old, Annette.
I do.
My goddaughter.
Yes.
Anette Christie, young actress available.
I thought there was no adverts in this programme.
Oh, sorry.
We're allowed one. Typical teenager, hands glued to the phone constantly. Even if the phone's going to run out of a charge, she's got to run, she's got to get a charger from somewhere, just can't take it, can't live without it. So, this is a good thing. Yeah, it needs to be monitored, and there needs to be a real awareness of what they're doing, because is it just a distraction from something else, or is it an absolute addiction? And I think it is an addiction. She literally cannot go streaks on Snapchat, whatever it is. She, they've got to be on the phone every single day to make that happen. See, James has no awareness of what that is. Streaks on.
I don't know idea what you're talking about. None at all.
Big question mark over James's head.
Aye, exactly.
But I mean, even she's doing her Nat 5s at the moment, so just on the prelims, preparing for the actual exam. And she's writing essays on her phone. And I've tried to explain to her, look, there's a laptop. No, I don't like the laptop. So their world does evolve around the phone, and I get that, all your personal information's in there, because we all have, you do your banking online, everything is there. But going in and, maybe it's peeping out the curtains, being a wee bit nosy, what are other people up to? But from the kid's point of view, a teenager particularly, they're comparing themselves to other people.
There's a lot of negatives.
Yeah, I mean, adults, we can all do that, well, it can be a physical thing. Oh, look, she's looking good, looking better than I am, or she's lost weight, or whatever it may be. But the whole self-promotion of social media, that's what it's about for a lot of people. I'm going here, I'm doing this, I've got this new job, whatever it may be. That's not a good thing.
I think, the problem with social media is that it is absolutely brilliant for some things. But because we all thought this is amazing, you can do all these things so much more quickly, you can keep in touch with all these people. Nobody ever thought initially that it was a problem, and it might be something that we might have to, be careful and keep an eye on ourselves. So I feel that it's absolutely brilliant for keeping in touch with people that are maybe not, nearby. And so I'm in touch with loads and loads of folk. But, Annette and I have known each other for 30 odd years, since we were 2 or 3. And when Annette moved to Canada and then she moved to Jamaica, we kept in touch by phone. Nowadays, what we'd do is we'd keep in touch on Facebook, but you're not really keeping in touch, you're just checking in. Whereas we would phone each other and we'd be on the phone for a couple of hours, maybe just once a month. But at least you had the... It
was a real conversation. You spoke about each other's lives, what was going on, but these sort of messages that you send on social media these days, that isn't keeping in touch. I mean, they're still alive, but you're not really touching base, understanding what's going on in that people's life. So, the screen time guidance, looking into that, I think that's a great thing.
You're not really keeping in touch, and we sound like we're saying, oh, in the old days it was so much better, but we are as guilty as anybody else of doing it. Right, well, I do think that unless you've got anything else you'd like to say, if you've got a highlight of the week or a low light of the week or anything you'd like to give us, I think we've got about a minute left.
I think my highlight of the week was probably watching John on Thursday. I really enjoyed how he handled Jackson Carlaw and the others.
It was.
FNQs.
It was good, but surely your highlight now is something a little more recent, James.
What I was doing yesterday at all.
Today. My highlight has been... What was your highlight in it?
Equal pay.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be.
It has to be.
And it was mine until today, when I had the great pleasure of interviewing and chatting with 2 of my very good friends. So thank you very much for being here. That's it for this week's Full Scottish. Thanks to Annette and James for joining me. And thank you to you for watching. You can visit our website, broadcastingscotland.scot, and while you're there, you can subscribe for just £5 a month. That's a bit of a bargain. Join us again next Sunday at noon for another Full Scottish.